All right, everybody, here we are. We're giving you a special treat. We are going to run through a very short demo with the guys from Spectre Miniatures on Spectre Operations 2nd Edition. Matt, Stephen, take it away. It's all yours.
Great. Okay, so for those of you that haven't played the 1st edition, it's a turn-based game. It's you go, I go, and it's broken down into 4 phases per turn. It's initiative, command, movement and tactical actions, which are grouped together, and then combat, and then it resets, and we go from there. What we're going to do today is, as Janet said, do a very short game which involves 3 elite tier operators. So there are very top-end, highly trained individuals with some really good, competent skills and some good equipment, and they're going to be faced off today against a small group of militia tier, which are at the lower end of the spectrum, but do have some equipment in this case, and yeah, they're grouped in a small group of 4 of them here, 2 who are kind of in a kind of a lookout mode on top of this building here. We've got 3 operators approaching from the side of the board just down. Steve, take it away, the first one.
Yeah, okay, so I will...
Let's do initiative first.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Okay.
So the first phase of the turn is initiative, where we essentially work out who's going to go first. In most cases, Spectre Operations, as you probably know, is a narrative-based game, so the initiative is often pre-decided by the scenario conditions. In this case, we're going to start with the SAS operators, who are going to have the initiative, so they're going to come first.
Okay, so I'm going to move my guys up to 6. Yeah, so...
So in this case, Steve has elected not to conduct any command actions. Command actions are essentially issuing of orders, and in the Spectre game, it's Overwatch, scanning, so detecting and using your visual aids, breakdown, which is a command action allowing you to break down your squad into 2 small fire teams, rally, which is a recovery mode to recover from suppression, essentially a part of our morale mechanic, issuing a fire control order, so pushing together your team and directing fire as a group onto a target, and then calling for fire off table assets, and they're all of our command actions that we could use. In this case, we're just keeping it very simple, and Steve has moved his 3 SAS operators up the board towards the objective.
Okay.
So he's now playing the part of the militia player, and he's elected to move his militia guys closer to find out what is going on at the bottom of the hill here.
Oops.
Although we're teaching today a very basic version of the rules, in the fuller version of the rules we've got an alertness mechanic which allows both covert activity by both sides, but also what happens when a force is detected by another force. So essentially it starts off with a force being either alert or unalert. When they then detect the enemy, clearly the conditions change and they're able to take more action.
Okay, so that's my movement done. So now we're on to shooting, are we?
Yep, so we're moving on to shooting, so yeah, how do you want to play it?
Right, okay, so I will take a single aimed shot at this guy.
Yep. Okay, so what Steve's doing now is representing one of his elite operators taking a shot at the militia lookout. So what they're then doing is he's going to roll a d6, he's going to add the shooting value of his operator, and he's going to compare that to the defensive stat of that militia.
Okay, so that will be a 1 plus the shooting stat of 6 for an elite operator, isn't it? So that's the scores of 7, and then the defense of the militia is a 2 plus 4, so 6. So I've hit him.
So he's hitting?
Yep.
So each of the weapons in Spectre Operations has a lethality value, essentially indicating how lethal it is. So what we then do is make a lethality roll based on that operator using a CQB carbine, so it's got a lethality value of 4.
Gone.
Okay.
He's dead.
So it's
it's a 6.
Yeah.
So he's gone. Okay, I will move on to. I'm going to do.
Just checking. Is that right? Is it 4 under?
4 plus.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. Losing our marbles.
You think command and all that kind of stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the other way around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Luckily, we're editing this.
So,
Okay, so that individual's killed.
yeah,
Now we need to add suppression.
yes.
Okay. So that individual has been fired at by one shot from the operator. The individual was killed, but suppression in Spectre operations still happens. All right. So what's happened is 1 point of suppression for the one shot is applied to that unit, the unit of 2 individuals that was up here. How our suppression mechanic works is essentially every time a shot is taken at a unit, it adds 1 suppression point to that unit. When the total points reaches the command value of the leader of that unit, it triggers a command test. If the test is failed, then a suppression effect happens on that unit. If the test is passed, then the suppression points total is reset, and it again accrues as the unit continues to be shot.
Cool. Okay, so I will do a rapid fire shot at this militia guy here.
Okay.
So
the rapid fire mechanic allows more shots to be taken with certain weapons, but it means that they're less accurate. Okay. But that does have an advantage of giving you more suppression points against that unit.
okay, so I'll do d6. So 5 minus 1 for the rapid fire is 4 plus 6. That's a score of 10.
Yep.
And then his defense is a 2 plus 2 is a 4. So that's hit him again.
So it's a hit.
But I have not killed him.
It hasn't killed him, so that shot was not lethal, which means then we roll on the casualty table.
Okay. 4.
Okay, which is a 4. So 4 is a serious wound, so in this case the model is injured and begins to bleed out, and will die in 5 turns.
Okay, so I'll lie him down for the moment because I'm going to take another shot at him with the same rapid fire. So that's a 4 plus 6, minus 1, so that will be a 9. So, but because he is prone,
Yeah, he's now incapacitated, so he has a defensive statistical for 1.
so there isn't a way he can defend, but I'll roll just to illustrate. 4 plus 2, 6, and because I've hit a prone guy, he's immediately killed, isn't it? Okay.
So any follow-on hits on a wounded model in Spectre operations means that model is immediately killed.
So that's 2 suppression on them now.
That is 2 suppression points. So with a model, when it's killed, the suppression points transfer and stay with the unit.
Okay, and then I'll do a single aim shot at the squad leader with my last guy. So that's 5, so that's 11, plus 1, 3. So he's also been hit, and he is dead.
Okay. Suppression point total for that unit increases with that one shot to 3. And what that does is that triggers a command test. So the command value of that model, of the leader of that unit is a 3. We've now reached that in terms of suppression points, so a command test is taken.
Which has failed.
And failed, which means that suppression applies. So what we call the suppression level increases from 0 now to suppressed. So that unit is now suppressed, which then applies modifiers to the whole of that unit. It also then affects the initiative roll at the start of the next turn, because we've got a unit now that is suppressed and affects the command and control of the whole force.
Okay, so that's all of my shots taken with these guys that can be taken, so I'll move on to the militia. So he is going to take a shot back against him using rapid fire, so 2 shots.
Yep.
And the suppression gives him, is it a minus?
He's on a -2.
Yeah, so he'll be a -3.
Yep.
So he's unlikely to hit anything, but he's going to take some shots.
So to clarify that, a suppressed unit applies a -2 modifier to shooting and a 2-inch movement restriction because they're essentially under quite heavy fire now.
Okay, so he's got a 2. So minus the 2 for suppression is a 0, minus the further 1 for rapid fire. He's actually on a -1 and +3 shooting for militia.
Yeah.
So he's just scored a 2. So he cannot actually hit that target, but I will roll his defense. Okay, so he is defended, but he gets a suppression point on him. And the second shot, more successful, so it's a 3, where 6 minus 3, so 3 plus 3 is a 6. 1, and the defense of a elite is 3. So that's actually hit him.
Okay.
So let's roll for lethality.
So he's firing an AK, which is lethality of
4. It has just wounded him.
Okay, so he's wounded. So again, we roll on the casualty table.
And it's a 4 again.
4 again. So again, serious wound. So
Okay.
that operator is down.
So that is all of the shooting completed. So that's the end of the shooting phase.
So that is the end of the combat phase, that is it?
Okay.
Okay, so that's the end of that turn. What that means then is the suppression points will be set to 0. The modifiers, however, that are accrued by the squads, or the units in this case, are applied to the initiative. And then we start.
Okay. So should we test for initiative now?
Yep.
Because they are a -1,
That's
aren't
a
they?
-1 modifier,
Okay.
yeah.
So the initiative is the D6 plus command, isn't
Plus the
it?
command value, yeah.
Minus any
-1.
modifier. Okay, cool. So 4, -1, and the command of the survivor is
3.
okay.
So where the commander going.
So we are on a 3 plus 3, 6.
Yep.
And then the elite 5 plus their command of 6,
value of
isn't
6,
it?
yeah.
So they keep the initiative this turn.
Yeah.
Okay, so then we'd simply move again. Okay. So usually, if I was the militia, I would put them both in cover, but I think what I'll do is I'll move this guy just to here to demonstrate the cover mechanics, just so he's always at -2 movement, so he can just about reach it at a 4-inch movement. And I'll keep this guy here, and if he survives, he might try and take a shot with his RPG. Okay, so I will go on to shooting, and he is going to take a shot at that one.
Yep.
Just a single aim shot.
Single aim shot, so again, no modifiers.
No. Oh, he'll be at a -4, being in cover though.
Yes, then we'll get a cover.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that'd be a 4 plus 6, then minus, what would you say that is for cover?
That's probably a -1, I'd say.
-2. Okay, so that'd be on a 9, and then defense for him, 3 plus 2, 5, so he's been hit.
So he's been hit again.
And he's been
It's a
killed.
lethal shot.
Okay.
But again, that unit still has 1 suppression point. It's now down to 1 individual, but it's still classed as a unit.
Okay, and then...
Command value now is down now to 2 because the commander's just been killed.
Yep. Okay, so I'll do the last shots at him. This is just be a straight roll. 3 plus 6, 9 against a 5, so he's also been hit. But he has not been killed, and his casualty roll is 5, which I believe is quite
So
serious.
it's a catastrophic wound. So the model is instantly unconscious, is incapacitated, and begins to bleed out.
Okay, so that's quite a short but bloody
Engagement.
couple of turns, and usually you wouldn't move and sort of play in quite that style. You'd try and utilize cover a bit more, but we just wanted to illustrate the basic move shoot mechanics.
That's right. So what we tried to do with Spectre Operation is get the balance right between realism and playability, and what we think we've got it right in that the game is quite bloody if you play it with lots of troops in close quarters without cover, but at the same time, you know, that's pretty realistic. So yeah, we think we're there.
Yeah.
With the development of it.
Yeah, and we'll be doing some more in-depth videos of further rules later down the line, won't we?
Yeah. The game is a turn-based game. It's broken down into phases. Each phase is you go, I go. It starts with the initiative phase where we decide essentially which group moves, which player moves his or her forces first in each of the follow-on phases. The first phase is the command phase, where essentially the player gets to issue orders through his or her troops, and those commands can be a variety of things in Spectre Operations. They can be anything as simple as putting your troops onto Overwatch, all the way up to calling in air support or calling in reinforcements. In this case, we've not played any command actions. We just kept it really simple with the basic mechanics for moving and shooting. The follow-on phase after command is movement and tactical actions, and we've grouped movement and tactical actions together deliberately to keep it nice and dynamic. So what you've got is movement and the ability to do tactical actions, which you find as things like throwing smoke grenades, throwing flashbang grenades, that sort of thing, and reaching. So what it does is it keeps movement really nice and fluid and fast, but at the same time keeps the realism there and allows players lots of flexibility. One of the key things that we like to see, and as it's been, I think, brought out by the demonstration, is the use of cover is essential because the game is deliberately lethal, because that is realistic, and also the use of tactics, particularly fire movement. So use of Overwatch and the use of covering fire whilst you move the troops forward, and those sort of things really help. We've actually, within the book, got a tactics guide that's based on real-world tactics, and using those in the game has really worked well in a lot of our examples and a lot of our testing. We've got a couple of slightly new, different and interesting things in there. So we've got the ability to break down certain squads. So if you've got a squad, you can deliberately break it down, have one element provide covering fire, the other element start moving, and they still retain the bonuses of being commanded by that unit leader. So it's a temporary breakdown. They do whatever the type of tactical activity it is, then they link up again. Okay, so we've built all that into the rules. In terms of combat, combat is mainly shooting, but also there's a close combat element. The shooting, again, is deliberately lethal. Each weapon has what we call a range interval. So essentially it is the distance that it can immediately shoot with no penalty, and then the weapons have no limit on their ranges. Okay, so it just depends on how many range intervals that weapon fires, increases the negative modifier and the difficulty of the shot. All of the weapons can be, we have a huge armory of attachments and various other, modern sexy kit that you can put on your weapon. So we've got different types of sights, whether they're day, night. We've got thermal sights, we've got lasers and lights and all that sort of good stuff, which really adds the lethality of the weapons. The night fighting rules are pretty interesting, particularly if you've got a small force with night vision against a larger force without. But of course they can even up the game by using things like off-table assets such as artillery and mortars, and indeed using things like balloons, calling in for a fire mission that will illuminate the whole battlefield for a certain period. Anything else you kind of want to mention?
Yeah, I think so. In this game, we didn't use any of the attachments on these figures, did we? Because they would usually have suppressor, red dot, laser, and then they'd be wearing body armor, which makes it harder to be wounded, to be killed.
Yes.
So it makes you more likely to be wounded and not killed.
Yeah.
And all of those attachments, especially on a CQB rifle, make them extremely lethal in the first range interval.
Yeah.
So on a small table like this, that would have been even more bloody. But I wouldn't.
All deliberate.
Yes, but I wouldn't have been quite so reckless of just charging my guys out into the middle of the street. Although that can be a good tactic if you have a lot of militia, because you provide more targets than you have shots.
Yeah.
So you just swamp them with numbers.
So we've balanced it up with the militia force. They have bonuses to being used in greater numbers. So for example, using the modern mentality in some cases actually works really well. They're also more resistant to things like suppression when they're in big groups. And as you can imagine, the suppression mechanic, as it works, if you've got a large force of militia shooting against a small force of elites, for example, they can lay down a lot of fire. It might not be accurate, but what it will do is start having a suppression effect on that smaller force.